Alrighty, welcome again to BryzGarage. Today we're going to be working on this 2007 Dodge Caravan. This is a 3.3 liter V6. We are going to be removing this cowl, and we're doing that to get access to our spark plugs and PCV valve and other modules back there to clean them up and all that good stuff. So we're going to be removing this in this video. So just wanted to show you how to do this today. So just a side note, you do not have to remove your cowl to get to things such as your spark plugs, your spark plug wires, PCV valve, or anything back there. It's just, there is room, it's just not very adequate, it's very tight. So I prefer to take it off. Hell of a lot easier to get to any task you're doing back there, in my opinion. So that's why I do it. Before we begin this project, we want to remove our negative cable from our terminal. That is a 10mm nut. We may not really have to do this, but I just do it as a rule of thumb if I'm doing anything electrical, such as replacing fuses, disconnecting harnesses, or anything like that, where we're doing spark plugs and other things. It's a good idea to do that. One of the first things I'm going to do before doing this task is I'm going to take a piece of tape here, just masking tape. I'm just going to make a line across the top of the window wiper, and I'm going to do this on both sides. I'm going to put one right there, and this is to make sure when I'm putting back on my window wipers, I put them in the right spot again. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to remove this little cap. If you look really close, there's a little insert right there where you can stick a little tiny screwdriver or a pick or something to pull off this cap. That will expose a 15mm bolt nut that you can just use your socket wrench to get. So we're going to remove this nut from this wiper. These wipers can be a pain in the butt. So all you have to do is take this nut, put it a little above the post, just loosen it so it's a little above the post there, like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your one hand, put it under here, and take your other hand and hold a hammer, ball peen, or I got this slow hammer, and all I'm going to do is lightly tap on this while I'm lifting up here with both my hands. So yeah, one hand under here, one hand slightly hitting that. You're not hitting the post, you're not hitting that, your nut's just slightly above it. And then just kind of wiggle it and then it will break free. So I got the passenger side off, and I'm going to leave my nut on there for right now. So now that we have both arms off, the next thing are these two little, I don't know what you actually call them, they're little plastic deals, and they're a Phillips head, but I found on many vehicles that I've done with these, if you go to remove them, you're just going to strip out the Phillips right there. It's easier if you just take a small screwdriver and pop them out. They're just like a little hook deal, and I'm assuming they turn and lock. I'm not exactly sure what they do. I never really looked at them too close, but anyway, pop out both of those and set them aside. Now that we got those out of the way, the next thing we're going to do is take our T20. This is a Thanx. It's the star, if you can see that. They're not Allen wrenches, just so you know, you'll possibly strip them. But there's 4 of them. There's one located right here, right there between the grating, right there, and on your passenger side, right there. I've already loosened them. So just take out those 4 bolts. We now have our 4 Thanx out. We are now going to remove this weather stripping. All we're going to do is separate it from this lower cowl right there if we can. We're going to lift up on this and pull up. So we now have the cowl flexed, the top part of the cowl anyway, flexed up a little bit. We now have to separate the window washing fluid hose right there. Just kind of pop it out right there so it's disconnected, and pull up through the bottom of the cowl, and then we'll be able to take this off. We now have this wire harness here connected to the lower part of the cowl. It's just held in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to slide it out this little red deal right here. We're just going to slide it out just a little bit, and then we can separate the harness. Now that our harness is disconnected, we got a little grommet here, and we're just going to simply pull that through like that, and pull the harness up and through the bottom, just like so. The next thing we have is these water drain vents. They're located right here, and there is one on each side, so just pull down, one right there, and one right there. We now have these two 10mm nuts. 1, 2. Pull those off. Alright, now we have 4 13mm bolts. 1, and then straight down from these brackets. 2, 3, and then in this corner, 4. Those are 13mm. Pull those out. Okay, we got the 4 13mm bolts out. So now the bottom cowl just comes out. That's all you have to do to get this whole cowl out. So now we can just simply lift this out and pull this out, and now we have access to spark plugs, coil, PCV valve, anything we want to change out. We are now going to reinstall our cowl. So before we do that, it might be a good idea to grease up some of these joints with our window motor mechanism in here. We just want to make sure it's nice and lubed up before we put it back together. Might be a good idea. Okay, so we lubed up all of our joints for our wiper mechanism. So that's nice and lubed up. And this bottom cowl just basically hangs on those 2 brackets right there. So we're going to first put those little nuts on there. Okay, so I've put those 2 little nuts on there, right there and right there. They are just loosely put on. We want to put in all the bolts nice and loose, so if anything sways one way or the other, it will go in easier. So just kind of put those on. The next thing we're going to do is put in the 4 of these bolts. If you remember, there's one in the corner, one under this bracket right there, one under this bracket right there, and then one in that corner. So put in those hand tight, and we should be able to tighten those back up. Okay, so now once we got our 2 10mm bolts up there, and all of our 13mm bolts, all 4 of those in place, go ahead and tighten them until they're nice and snug. Okay, and now that they are nice and snug, let's go ahead and put back our washer line that put it up through here, up through the lower cowl. That will connect onto the upper portion of the cowl. Then we have 2 water drains that need to be hooked back in, one on that side, one on this side. Then we also have this wire harness that needs to be hooked back up here, and then also the grommet pushed back into its hole. So yeah, we'll hook back all those, and we can begin to place back on our upper portion of the cowl. Okay, so once more before we put on the top cowl, there is our harness all hooked up and hooked to the lower cowl. There is our water drain. Here is our other water drain. And right here we have our window washer fluid. So just kind of hold on to that. Remember the top portion of the cowl, the tube will go in there as we're placing it on, and it will connect down here. So let's put our top on. Okay, so just remember as we're putting this top portion of our cowl on, we're going to want to flex it in the middle so it's bowed upwards. So we can get it in between the hood brackets right there and right there. Okay, so we got our window washer fluid hose here, and we're just going to put it through this hole here. Drops down, and it connects right into that hose down here. And those will hook together. And then we'll just kind of line that up and begin to put our Torx screws back in. Remember there was 4 of them that go up top. 1 there, 2 in the middle, and 1 on the end. Okay, so we now have our 4 Torx in there. Be careful tightening those up. They can strip real easy, so be careful. The next thing we're going to do is put those little plastic pieces in, the ones that have the J-hook on them. We're going to put those in. Okay, so now we have our little J-hooks in there. Turn them if you can. If they didn't bust while you were turning them in the first place. And then we're just going to put this window wiper arm back on. And remember, we got tape there to line up the position of where our arm was before we removed them. So about right there. So that's where we're going to tighten our 15mm bolt. Then once you get this side done, work on the other and tighten that one down. Okay, since we now have bolted down our 15mm nuts there onto our wipers, and they are in place. Remember, we went to the top of the blade, so we know we got the correct place. We're just going to snap these little covers back over. You just pop in like that, and we're going to do the same to the other side. Okay, so now that we have everything back in place and the cowl is officially back on, all we have left is the battery, because now we have reconnected all of our electrical hookups, such as the harness. So we will reattach this 10mm cable back onto the terminal. Okay, so now it's all put back together. So I just want to thank you again for watching BryzGarage. I hope this video helped you. Please make sure you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thanks again and have a good day.